Okay, so even though I'm banned from Reddit, I had ended up going on there and I was looking for something or for some examples to make a video, but I ended up coming across this, and this reminds me of something that I've mentioned before in a couple of videos in my I think the How to Run playlist, but I'm pretty sure those same videos are even in the How Not to Run playlist, and also my new How to Run 2 playlist, because I wanted to make a playlist with just my videos. And this is a good example of plenty of things that I mention all the time. One, the narrative that escaping your abuse situation is dangerous and that's not what you should be doing because you're a quote-unquote child. And the ageism never stops till you're 30 as well, which is something I mention all the time. So people are always going to have something to say, even if you escape in your 20s. And the legalities around it don't help, but I'm just going to go ahead and start reading before I go on a rant. My younger sister was lured through this subreddit. Actually, no, something I have to say before I really start. Just looking at this really makes me think about something that my older enabler sister would say. Like, I kind of got scared just reading the beginning because it really sounded like some bullcrap she would say to try to manipulate the situation. And I will say, though, that even before I had ever known about groups like this, as I talk about all the time, I always saw myself escaping my abuse situation and maladaptive daydream since 6, living in the woods right before the tribulation started to take off. So even if I wouldn't have ever found out about Reddit through somebody who made a comment about it under one of my abuse evidence videos back during the part 1 channel, I still would have ended up leaving regardless. And I will totally say, this subreddit didn't help or make me leave. I was gonna leave regardless. The subreddit actually was really kind of a roadblocky type thing that made me take a little longer to leave because I wasn't being given any real good advice for my situation. Because to be truthfully honest, nobody knows your situation better than you do. In fact, the moderators never liked me since the abuse evidence videos, and they would even tell me things like, it seems like you trying to leave your abuse situation will never work and stuff like that, because there are certain people that they didn't like. And I feel like it's because of me calling out the racial stuff that happened on this site alone, like the entire site in general. But I'm not going to really go into that. But the subreddit doesn't make anybody leave. But anywho, I'm posting this as a warning to anyone using this subreddit, especially minors, because people are in the minor obsession, which really the terms like minor do nothing but enable and okay abuse. My younger sister used this subreddit a while ago when she was upset and decided to run away from home, which is something that any abuser would say. Any abuser, especially abuse enabler, which an older sibling would probably be an abuse enabler and flying monkey, would say this and give really no context to what they were quote-unquote just upset about. Our family situation is fine, which really any abusive person would say. She left because she was angry, not because of abuse. And it really doesn't make a difference anyways, because at the end of the day, how things turn out for you, whether you're really abused or not, quote-unquote, depends on your decisions and your mindset. That's the moral of the story. Most people are going to end up stuck out here because there really just isn't like any easy way to get out. Or more so due to the trauma symptoms, the continuous trauma from being treated like crap. And then the systems put in place that are part of the human cash cow systems as a whole to try to keep people trapped in certain situations. And then the fact that so many people are going to try to push you back to your previous situation. After she posted here, she was contacted by several people from the subreddit who encouraged her to leave. She ended up running away and was later found in another province. During the investigation, the police discovered that she had narrowly avoided being sex trafficked. Receiving updates from the police, they've identified the people behind the Reddit accounts who messaged her and on other platforms. All individuals involved are facing criminal charges, including one person who would be charged with offenses related to child exploitation materials. I want to thanked the hotel workers who noticed that a minor was on the run and contacted authorities. Which is an unfortunate thing because people are always in your business to try to get you back in your previous situation. And it's funny that all these quote-unquote helpers aren't around when you're in the abuse situation. When you're in the abuse situation, it's none of anybody's business and nobody wants to get involved. Or if people know that you got kicked out, nobody wants to get involved. But if people know that you left to escape your abuse, all of a sudden people come out the woodworks trying to push you back in because nobody really gives a crap. And most people only care about themselves. In a false sense because they hate themselves too as well. But anywho, they likely saved her life. Which also goes into the whole fear of the unknown, fear-mongering thing that ultimately you're going to end up dying if you step out into the real world and do anything, which is really interesting. This is why a lot of people don't make it anywhere and they stay stuck in their abusive family system and never even work a job for themselves. Because they're manipulated by their abusive family systems into believing that if they step out the front door, they're going to get kidnapped and their face is going to get bashed in, which honestly could happen. Anything could happen, but it's a lot of fear-mongering and what is. And the funny thing about the West is that people have a way of abusing, traumatizing, infantilizing, coddling, and holding the youth captive in the house while still torturing them, and all the fears of the outside world that they install into their head are already happening in the house. The issue in situations like this isn't leaving the abuse situation. The issue is still not being able to accept the fact that nobody gives a crap and nobody's going to save you and you have to save yourself. People like this are still looking for a savior. They're still looking for somebody to help them out and let them stay with them. If your own family didn't like you and wasn't nice to you and wasn't safe, what makes you think that some random person will be? Which I'm not going to put this idea out there that everybody's going to treat you the same or similar to your family. That's definitely nowhere near true. Your family will tell you that, but that's not true. But generally, people are worried about their own lives and their own families and aren't going to care too much about you or what you have going on, which you should have already learned in your abuse situation anyways. The issue is that people are looking for somebody to save them because, for one, a lot of people are scared to camp outside, which is insane. But typically, the people who are scared to camp outside and rather run up in somebody's house, they're like that because they've already been essayed and R-worded throughout their life by family and other people that were also related to family. And so they feel like camping outside will be as dangerous. But realistically, I feel like it's a weird mindset because I haven't had any of that stuff happen to me, but I always notice that people who have been essayed by their family are scared to camp outside because they feel like the same thing will happen. But realistically, that depends on where you're camping and different things like that. Anywho, my family's taking time to heal and ensure my sister gets the support she needs. I'm sharing this because I want others, especially teens, to know that this subreddit is not safe. Nowhere is safe, although Reddit is literally an app for chomos and white supremacists in the left and the right, but especially in the left, and I say that all the time. Please do not use this platform as a place to seek help if you're thinking about running away. There is no help. That's something that people got to get through their head. Nobody's going to help you. Nobody's going to save you. As long as you're looking for help and saviors, this is always how things are going to go. There are dangerous people here who prey on vulnerable minors, which here's the minor thing once again. But I'm not even going to go into that because I have a whole video about that. And to any adults reading this, if you are messaging or coaching a child to run away from home without knowing the real situation, you will be charged. And like I said, this 100% totally sounds like some bullcrap that my older enabler sister would say. And it's like, stuff like this is also one of the excuses that people will use for why they don't want to help abuse victims of any age, really, because people will say, well, I don't want to be accused of anything, and if I help you, then your abusers are gonna try to make me look bad too, and stuff like that, which is really just an excuse because at the end of the day, people don't care. The same way that people won't help you now is the same way that even if you were 18, even if you were 25, they still wouldn't help you. In fact, there's going to be a new excuse every time, and honestly, most of these people that are making up excuses for why they won't help you when you're underage because, quote unquote, they don't want to get accused of anything, or even while you're 18 plus because they don't want to get accused of anything by your family, they're going to disappear probably before you even get to your mid-teens anyways. Edit, I forgot to mention, one of the people who contacted her pretended to work for a youth crisis center. And this totally gives me vibes of like that one dude I mentioned who had made a post, and it was titled, Why You Shouldn't Run Away. And in the very beginning, the dude admitted that he never actually even got out the front door. So one of the reasons is because his situation was so bad. He was seen and ended up getting tortured before he even got out the front door. In fact, before he could even really get to the front door. And then he said that like some other kid, the police had found him and he didn't want to get sent back home, so he jumped off of a bridge and drowned himself and ended up passing away. And that's the reason to not run. It sounds like he really needed to run, and his situation was so bad as usual that he didn't want to get charged and locked up and sent back home, to where he was willing to just unalive himself to not have to get sent back home. And for whatever reason, that's like some way to encourage people to not run, but really that just shows more reasons why America needs youth shelters, which of course those aren't going to be safe either, but there should at least be laws put in place where being homeless isn't criminalized and people don't have to get sent back to situations. But instead, America has this, it's better for people to know, how does the saying go? Out of sight, out of mind. That's the mindset that people have here, out of sight, out of mind. They want to lock you up somewhere where you're tortured, drugged, and unalived and R-worded, so they don't have to see you, so they can say, oh, homeless children, that's a third world thing. We don't have homeless children or even homeless youth here and stuff like that. This is exactly why successful runners or people who are out here who aren't like in too much risk by making videos should really tell their stories, because it's like there's too many false narratives. But one of the things about it is that nobody wants real harm reduction. Nobody wants youth shelters. Nobody wants people to be able to get real help. They want people to be stuck out here. They want people to actually get R-worded and assaulted in traffic, so they can say, oh, well, it's your fault you're out here. Like, even in videos or documentaries about people who help people who have been in lower level prostraf, one of the things that they say in those documentaries that the staff say is people have to understand why they're in these situations. In fact, there was even this one girl in this one documentary I watched a little bit of that was talking about we have to understand why we're here. We're all here because we made bad decisions. We ended up getting traffic, which was lower level traffic, because we ran away or we got kicked out or we were in foster care and we left, which being in foster care is being homeless. Being in foster care literally is being trafficked and having nowhere to go. So it's really interesting, that narrative. But either way, it's all really victim blaming. It's people being prideful and arrogant and stupid and ignoring the real issues instead of making harm reduction and having laws put in place where people aren't criminalized for being kicked out or having to leave abuse, which happens because lawyers and judges and law officials are Freemason, Chomo, KKK, Luciferians, as I always say, who side with abusers. That's why the laws are the way they are, as I always talk about, but nobody wants any of that. People want bad things to happen to you so they can throw it up in your face and say, yeah, that happened because you did this, and that's why you were R-worded, because you were being bad and grown and you left when you had nowhere to go anyways. And as I always say, there's so many perversion spirits and Marine Kingdom agents everywhere. You can't even work a job without getting sexually harassed by a boss or something. Realistically, and unfortunately, since ancient times, being harassed and assaulted, while it shouldn't happen, is kind of just a part of being out in the real world. And if you've had an abusive family system, I mean, you most likely had the same thing happen there. So it reminds me of this quote that I mention pretty often from this one dude. And he said, I hate how people raise kids these days. They either abuse and traumatize them, or they coddle them so much they're not prepared for the real world. I really effing hope other kids get to read this. I get it. I've been 14 once and I felt the whole effing world was against me and my life could not get any worse. Which, to be truthfully honest, the whole world, well, I won't say the whole world, but the people around you are flying monkeys and enablers, and they don't give a crap. In fact, the way it typically goes is that people are either in the Lucifer effect and will side with your abusers against you to make themselves feel better and feel special, or they're completely oblivious and nonchalant about your situation and they just completely ignore you Kind of like the thing with homeless people and how people avoid eye contact. So you probably were a targeted individual in a way, and the whole world, at least in your surroundings, was against you. But generally, people are pretty much, what's the word? I don't remember what I usually say, but people are pretty much just, they don't care about what you have going on, to make a long story short. As I always say, you have to get over cognitive dissonance. You have to understand that nobody's going to help you, and you have to save yourself. And you have to do all that way before leaving or trying to leave. And if you're kicked out or in foster care, you typically, especially if you're kicked out, you typically don't even have the time to really think about like how these things are gonna go, and like you don't have time to think about getting over cognitive dissonance and stuff like that, because you may not even expect that you're gonna get kicked out. Kind of like in that last video where I mentioned this one girl who was kicked out not even a week before I met her. All this stuff is just cognitive dissonance and ways for people to say, well, I'm grown now, so since everything becomes repressed memories and you forget all the horrible things that happened to you and how you really felt at that moment anyways, when people get older and fall into the I'm grown complex, they now feel like, now that I'm this age, I no longer have to be tortured and stuff by people. And when people are still abused and tortured and treated poorly, they say, oh, this person treated me like a child, or they cursed me out, or they beat me up, or they essayed me like I was a child, which is insane, but that's really how people are in society. And also, you feel like now none of that stuff that used to happen to you when you were younger matters anymore, because you don't have to deal with it anymore. So now you do the same things that were done to you to others, and you had the same complex of, well, you're just a child and you need to just thug it out and hold on for dear life till 35 and stuff like that people say when you can get out, which is all bullcrap, which is why, I mean, a lot of people, they don't even make it out of these situations. If people wouldn't leave, and even if they wouldn't have got kicked out, they wouldn't be alive, or they would have had to unalive themselves, or they would have been locked up for the rest of their life. They would have had to unalive their parents and then be blamed for that because of what I like to call sixth commandment culture, which I have a video about that. I thought my parents were insane, my brother was a horrible person, and all my friends were fake, which I can only imagine what their brother was doing, because I even remember one kid who was, I don't think he was in this group, but he was in some other group talking about his brother was forcing him to watch porn and sodomizing him, and how he was trying to figure out how to get out of his situation. And of course, as I always talk about, anytime there's a family system where the siblings are put in control of having to discipline other siblings, quote unquote discipline, or the siblings are essaying each other, it's always normalized in the family system, and it's encouraged by the parents / guardians, because the family system is overall dysfunctional. So I can only imagine what the brother was even doing, but anywho, my environment was horrible and I just wanted to commit. I would self-harm and I thought my life was over. LOL, I could not have been more wrong. No, you just got lucky enough to survive. When you're growing up, literally there are hormones going absolutely crazy within your body because you were growing. Because of course, the mental health system has taught people, or I don't know, American Society in the Mental Illness Obsession, which I have a playlist about, has taught people that wanting to unalive yourself and having sex addiction is just a part of getting older, which is very interesting. But all that stuff is bullcrap. In fact, the hormone talk is all things that are pushed through media and Hollywood, high school movie culture, which is all made by chomos anyway. So people are just really obsessed with like this hormone stuff and all that, this ageism stuff, especially during puberty. All rhetoric made by chomos like Sigmund Freud and Dr. Money. People who are obsessed with puberty and teenagers and people in their 20s. But anywho, there's literally nothing you can do because your body is furiously trying to grow up. Which is really, being abused is furiously trying to grow. This person has to be a chomo or something. Your bones, your muscles, your brains, literally every part of your body, and especially your brain, is still making more neuron connections with every experience, even though you're probably in a situation where you're forced on different drugs that cause brain damage, shrink your brain, kill neurons, turn off neurotransmitters, block neural pathways. Absolutely everything feels blown out of proportion, and absolutely everything feels like the end of the world. Absolutely everything feels super mega important at the time. Your perception of time is also completely different compared to when you get much older, unless your life is literally in danger. Well, to be truthfully honest, time is sped up because the end is getting closer and closer. Because if time wasn't sped up, even the very elect wouldn't be saved. So time definitely is getting faster, but unless your life is literally in danger, someone is literally taking a knife and... You know what? I say this pretty often, but I once had somebody reply to my comment and say that really abuse shouldn't even be allowed to get to that point. Like, I knew people that grew up in a house and their mom would stab them in the face until their dad kicked her out, and then their dad was really neglectful, and they were completely neglected, and they literally raised themselves from literal, like, younger than 10 years old, younger than 9 on up, in a house by themselves that was extremely dirty, like the bathtub didn't work, stuff like that, and they completely just lived inside a house by themselves their entire life. And they were my neighbors, and of course nobody ever cared or did anything. But luckily I was able to like get my dad to like give them hot dogs and food and stuff. In fact, when I went back to NC last December or January, I truly believe that girl that I met that I mentioned who was 19 getting R-worded at the shelter and being impregnated and stuff, she really did look familiar, and I really do believe that that girl was one of their cousins or something, but I don't know. It could just be all in my head, but I swear she looked familiar. And she looked like one of those girls' cousins. But anywho, you were threatening to unalive you or whatever. Which is funny because I had videos of this stuff happening to me, but it was all okay and fine and dandy. But you have to save yourself. Nobody cares and nobody's going to save you is the point. Or lock you up without food or for more than 3 days. Why should you have to be locked up or without food for more than 3 days? Or beating you senseless and bloody with their fist. Anything else is not worth running away for. Even if they were, the answer isn't running away. The answer, it's literally to go to police and call CPS. No, it's not. Nobody cares. Police will probably tell you that it isn't their job to even intervene in this situation. And if you do call the police, you're going to get charged for your own abuse. As far as CPS, their job is to remove people who aren't being abused. Or even if you are and they do take you, which is very unlikely 99% of the time, being in CPS custody is guaranteed homelessness. It is being homeless. It is being abused. It is being trafficked and taken through more SRA. And you're going to end up homeless regardless in their custody, but they'll probably put you back home. But either way, it's not a safe thing to do, and they're not going to care anyways. And you're just going to end up getting locked up somewhere. And you can't report your own abuse, but even if other people report, you're going to be blamed for other people's reports. And you're going to be told it's your fault that they reported or that you called. And that's going to be used against you too as proof that you're delusional and insane and all that. And nobody's going to save you. There is no system put in place to help you. Don't give me that BS that police and CPS won't do anything. If your life is in actual danger and you're actually... Okay, so then did they do anything for you? Because it sounds like you just pushed through it and stayed home. But this is that stuff I talk about. People do not care what you have going on, and once they're out of their situation, once they convince themselves that it was all okay and that they were just having puberty, they're gonna look back on their situation, the parts they can even remember, and be like, it was all fine and dandy. There will absolutely be signs that the police and CPS will be able to pick up on. They are trained, that is their job. No, it's really not. Their job is to have a quota and to collect a certain amount of kids who aren't being abused so they can take them through SRA sex traf. But anywho, I'm still known as a kid who had 1,950 plus videos of everything that happened to me and other people and couldn't get help because there is no help. You save yourself. But if this is just some teenage angst, angry, upset tantrum, which there's no such thing, you need to sit the F down and grow the F up. Your parents are grounding you from cell phone usage or no gaming for 6 months is not effing the end of the world, which honestly, I don't really know anybody who had situations like that. I mean, I'm sure that stuff does happen, but I don't know anybody who has situations like that. Like, even people who are in really serious situations. Like, I knew this girl who was being essayed by her mom and her mom's boyfriend, and her mom was a millionaire. She needed to run away. But a lot of people like her are horrified to run away because they know, even at 18 plus, they're going to get reported missing. if their parents are rich especially, they're going to get found. Like, there are people that are J3W Rev 29s in these Serpent Sea bloodlines that SRA sex traffic their kids are born into it, and they have to escape. They spend the entire rest of their life moving around and running. Like Allie Carter. She's not a Rev 29. She's one of those Black Boule Prince Hall, Black Panther bullcrap child abusing bloodline. She's in one of those. So she's not like a J3W, but still, she's one of those people that has to spend the rest of their life running because their family is rich, or just in general, they can send people after them to find them. Like the higher level SRA that you're born into, that's serious situations, but overall, like, what was I saying? Oh yeah, people are scared to get out because they know that society will work together to get them back in their abuse situation, to get them back in SRA or whatever other situation. Even if it's not like higher level satanic ritual abuse, just some lower level anything. People will work together. People who don't know you from a can of paint will work together, like people like this, to get you put back in your abuse situation, to get you charged and locked up because, quote unquote, you're unsafe. And that's going to be no matter how old you are. People do not give a crap about you or what you have going on. If you were able to have drinking water, meal, in the bed at night, which a lot of people who are in these abuse situations can't have, but that doesn't even matter really. Electricity, internet access, to be able to get onto the internet and post on Reddit means that your life is already better than 80% of all human life on the planet. And I'm sure that this is like one of those anti-African covert rhetoric things where they're like, yeah, these people who don't want technology and don't want to be a part of the beast system, they're third world and they're in a horrible situation, and you should be glad that you at least can get online and you're not like one of these Amazon tribes who don't want contact with the outside world, whose vibrations are higher, who are doing better mentally and aren't all depressed and stuff. Yeah, they're in a horrible situation. That's what that sounds like right there. But that doesn't even matter. Internet access is so irrelevant. It's like, I don't even know what to say about that. Thank the heavens you weren't born and you got... Yeah, I didn't even see that part. I hadn't even read this comment yet, and I knew that that's where this was going. This is one of those white supremacist, dark skin, third world bullcrap. Even though America's about to be worse than a third world country, I could totally tell that that's where this was going. Where you literally have to drink pee water. You mean like what's happening to people in the U.S. or people where melanated people, homeless people, and immigrants are being kidnapped by martial law enforcement like ICE and being thrown in prisons in America and being forced to drink water that the law enforcement guards and ICE is peeing in? Is that what you're talking about? With the mosquito larvae from the... This is exactly the stuff I talk about when I say that Reddit is the app for chomos and white supremacists on the left and the right. And like I said, I didn't even read this comment or even fully read the post before I made this video, but I could just tell that that's where this was going. I could tell this was about to go to some anti-African bullcrap. This isn't helpful in like any kind of way. I don't think you face toxic parents. That is their job, quote unquote. Bro, I don't think you ever call CPS. You can't make your own CPS report, but like I already said, even if somebody else makes it, which happened every time for me since I was 8, you're gonna get blamed for it anyways. Which I'm not even gonna go into. This is actually... That's kind of funny, the ending.